In previous class, we discussed about how to have rendering the list, right? We talked about how to do the rendering of the list, right? So we had dummy expenses here. We had three expenses, and for all the three expenses, we tried to render one expense item using the map method, array.map method, right? It returns expense item and we stored it into expenses JSX. Then we took that and dumped into the unordered list, meaning that is the expense list, right? I hope till here everything is clear. Today we will talk about one other topic, and that is how to add event listeners to React components. Okay, so here we will try to have two buttons or maybe just one button. Okay, so on clicking on which we should change the title of this. Okay, that's what we want to try. So I can give a name called as change title. Okay, as you can see in the screen, we should have change title button here. Now I want to add an event listener so that when clicked, the title of this book should be changed. Okay, but how to add the event listeners in React components? In React components, for every event, it's not just based on the React itself, it's a regular HTML thing as well. Every HTML elements have attributes for every event. If you want to have a click event, you will get on click event. If you want to add a submit event, you will have on submit event attribute, right? That's what we want to add now. So you can just simply come back here and give a space and add attribute on click. And usually event listeners take a function as arguments, right? So this on click attribute takes a function value here. Okay, so let me write a function name, that is change title handler. Okay, so in React, for the event listener functions, you will always name handlers because it kind of handles some things. Okay, it's just a convention, you don't have to do it. Okay, now observe here, I'm not executing the function, I'm only writing the function's name. And when the click happens, React will execute this function for us. We shouldn't execute it. Remember this carefully. Okay, so now I'm going to come back here and create that function change title handler equals to, I'm going to create an event listener function. So this is the function that we are going to pass here. Okay, so now what should happen here? We need to change the title. Okay, but I just want to make sure that you guys know how to have the event listener functions, right? For every event, you will get an attribute like this. If you want to have a on scroll event, you just have to do on scroll event. If you want to have a keyboard event like on key press or key down, you can have on key down event. Okay, so this is how simple it is. You can add event listeners to React component. Now I want to change the title when this button is clicked. Okay, for that I want let me store the value of the title in a simple variable like let and title equals to, from props we have received the title, right? So props dot title, initial title is this, and let me take this title and dump it here, or maybe I just need to erase the title. Clear? I have a variable start initialized with the let keyword, and then the initial value of that is props.title, and I'm showing it here. Now when this button is clicked, I will change the props.title to something else. Okay, so like this, title equals to changed title. Okay, now I'm going to test it. Let's come outside and click here. Nothing actually is working. Let's open the console and check out here. Let's refresh and let's click on this. Nothing is actually working and we don't even have any errors, right? So why is it? Why are we not even seeing anything? Let me also log the value. Okay, after changing the title, let me log it here. Log the title value. Okay, and now let's visit back and try to click. Of course, we are getting from the expense item.jsx from the ninth line, we are getting the changed title thing, right? It's working. The value of the title is being changed, but it's not reflecting here. Why so, right? This is because how you should know how React components renders it into the DOM. Okay, so what you see in the DOM, meaning in the browser, is the result of a function being executed, meaning it is the returned JSX coming from a function, right? So let's just see the structure from the beginning onwards. Okay, so when the main.jsx file runs, okay, this is the first file to get executed, right? So what is it doing? It's importing the app and running it, executing it. When a function gets executed like this, okay, it returns the value, and that return value is what you see here. Okay, let's just check this app.jsx once. And app.jsx is just a function which is returning a value with the div and the expense list function being executed here. Okay, so like this, expense list also gets executed. So the return value of the expense list will come here at this spot, right? So now let's just check expense list.jsx. It returns this multiple expense items here, right? And expense item, if you check, it contains an li with some kind of div and some kind of values and the date component. And the date finally does some kind of date operations and show it to the DOM, right? So when the first time app starts, main.jsx file will be called. It runs the app, and app in turn runs the expense list, and expense list in turn runs the expense item, and item in turn runs the expense date, right? And every result of the function will be returned into the browser. Now the thing is, when you change something in the item, that is a simple variable value, when you change the title value inside a function, it won't trigger the function to be re-executed. If a function doesn't get re-executed, it won't return a new JSX with the new value of the title that is changed here, right? So if the title that's changed here won't be reflected in a new returned, it won't be available outside in the browser, right? I hope this is very clear. It's a very simple concept. In order to get a updated JSX with the updated title that's changed here, you need to re-execute this function. Also, while re-executing, you need to remember that this title changed is the latest value of the title and show it in the return JSX. Then it will be brought to the DOM here, right? So how to do this? So how to make our function, a component function, whenever a value of the title changes, I want to save it into a variable and call this function again so that I can return a new JSX with the updated value, which is really a not easy task to do ourselves. That's why React has come up with some inbuilt functions called as React hooks. And these are special functions provided by the React itself, and they help us in handle such complex tasks like handling the state. Okay, when I said state, you might not know what a state is. Okay, so in order to understand how to solve this, you need to understand two concepts. One is a state, and another one is a React hook, that is use state. Okay, so let me start by giving you the example of what a state is. Okay, I will just open the chat GPT, and you should too, and let me write state in React. Okay, so in React, a state is an object that represents the current condition of a component. It holds the data that can change over time due to user action. This is the part that you should care about. Okay, so as in our component, title holds the current value, but in future it will try to change its value, like change title. And such a variable or such an object is called as a state. Clear? Okay, so let me just try to read it to you guys again. In React, a state is an object that represents the current condition of a component. Okay, and it also holds the data that can change over time due to user actions or network responses or many other things. Okay, so a state allows React components to manage their own data and re-render themselves. That is what is important. Okay, so whenever the component changes its state, it will re-render the entire component. Okay, so that's it. Now how to handle this? In order to handle the state, we take the help of a React hook called as useState. Let me understand what a React hook is. React hook. Okay, so React hooks are functions. As I said before, they're special functions that enable functional components to use state and other React features without needing to write a class. Okay, the class is because in the olden days, people used to have the class-based components. That's why. Okay, you just need to understand that these React hooks are special functions provided by the React itself, and they help us in handle complex operations. Okay, and they were introduced in React 16.8 as a way to add state and other React features to the functional components. Clear? Okay, so there are some of important React hooks like use state, use effect, use context, use reducer, callback, memo, ref. So you might see here that every React hook starts with use, right? So next time onwards, whenever you see something like use and some kind of name, then it's a React hook. They're all functions. Clear? Okay. So now we need to understand what use state is. Okay. So use state. Use state, as we know, it's a React hook. It helps us in managing the state of a component. Clear? So useState is a React hook that allows functional components to manage state. That is what is important. And you have to remember these terms. Okay, it helps us in managing a state of a component. Okay, in interviews, you have to come up with sentences or the keywords like this. And it takes one argument. Okay, this useState function takes just one argument, which is the initial state value. Okay, like that's what we are trying to do. Using the use state, we want to create a state variable which holds the state value, and we can change the value of it, right? So when you call this use state function, you need to pass the initial state value to that function as an argument, and importantly, it returns an array with exactly two elements. That is very important here. Okay, it returns an array with two elements. Okay, so what's the first element inside that array? The first element of the array is the current state value, the latest state of the component function component. Okay, and what's the second one? The second one is a function that can be used to update the state. Okay, it's not necessary that you need to use this function, but of course we want to, and this function is the only way to update the state of the current state. Clear? Okay, so now I will try to do it here. Okay, as you can see here, there is an example, but I don't want to go with that. I'll just go with my own example here. Okay, so I hope you can identify which is the state here. Definitely the state is the title, right? So because it changes over time, and it needs to re-render the entire function with the updated JSX, right? So we can treat this as the title as the state, right? But in order to create the state variable, we shouldn't just do it like this. We should use the React hook, which is use state. All right, let's import use state. You can just type import and take floor brackets and write use state and hit enter. You will automatically get it. Sometimes for some reason this is being added. You can take it down. And now just remember that there are rules how you can use the React hooks. So just know that React hooks cannot be used outside of any functional component. They should always be directly within the functional component. and they shouldn't be nested in any other function. You cannot use useState here. Okay, this is invalid. They have to be directly within the functional component. Okay, so now I'm going to call the useState function here, and it takes one argument, which is the initial value of the state, right? So here, which is the state? Title is the state. And what is the initial title? That it gets from the props, right? So let's pass that here, props dot title. Okay, so now, sorry, now I don't need this title value anymore. And what does this use state function returns when gets executed? It returns an array, right? So this array, let me call it as an array itself. Okay, it returns an array. I'm storing it into a variable called as array. But I can also do one more thing, because we know that this array contains exactly two values. One is the state value and another one is a function that updates the state. We can directly destructure those two into separate variables. Okay, let me take the destructuring syntax. And the first value, we know that it's a state, which is a title, and another one is the function which will help us in setting the title. So that's why we usually call it as set title. Okay, if we had price to be changed, so this would be like price, and this would be set price. Okay, and this would be initial price, something like this. Okay, this is just an example. Let me comment this out. Okay, I hope you understood how to name the destructured variables. One is the state value and another one is a function that sets the state, new value of the state. Clear? Okay, so now when I want to change the title value, you shouldn't do it like this. Just take the variable title and assign a new value to it. That's not how it works. Okay, instead of this, you have to do it like this. Come back here, take this set title and set the value to it, which is new value, which is change or changed title. I hope this is clear to you guys, right? Now let's save it, come back here, go to our project. Let's refresh once again and click on change title. As you can see, it's being changed. If you click on change title, it changed here as well, right? So this is very good, right? We did achieve two things here. One is how to add event listeners to the React components or elements, and then how to bring change into the DOM using the state by managing the state. Clear? Okay, so now let's just log and observe what exactly is going here. Okay, so whenever the expense item component renders, I want to log like expense item rendered. Okay, so there are totally 3 expense items. So initially you will get 3 expense items being rendered. So 3 logs. Okay, let's refresh. We got 3 logs here. Okay, let me clear all these things. And now if I click on change title, as you can see, we got expense item rendered, right? And then if I click again, I should get once more expense item rendered. This is because every time you change a state value like this, it triggers the functional component to be re-rendered, meaning re-executed, so that it returns a new JSX with the updated title here. Clear? I hope this is very clear. Let's discuss the next topic in the next video.